Welcome to Beyond the Chutes in our podcast series, Quiet Enough to Ride. I'm Doug Simcox, and along with my co-host, Sam Swearingen, we're here to explore the rodeo mindset. This series is about more than just staying calm in the chute or focused during a run. It's about building the mental muscles like resilience, confidence, and clarity that help you improve your game, reduce stress, and achieve your goals, both in the arena and in life. Because the truth is, we rodeo as we live. The same mental toughness and focus that drives success in competition can shape every part of your life. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive into Quiet Enough to Ride. Welcome back to Beyond the Chutes and our special Quiet Enough to Ride podcast series. You know, when I started this series, I sat down, I think it was August of 2023, I started putting my thoughts together. So lots of research in between here and there and pulling a lot of memories up, quite frankly. This topic, and I think I said this, I know I said this in our last episode, this topic is one that David G. and I taught at our company for a number of years. And we probably, in a 6-hour training session, we probably trained upwards of 300 people, 400 people on this particular topic. And it is the topic of and the power of the mindset. And of course, it fits right into the rodeo mindset and everything we've been talking about so far. So this is episode number 11, and we're going to build on our discussion from last time, TED, T-E-D, the empowerment dynamic. So specifically, we're going to be talking about today two very different ways we as people, approach challenges, the victim mindset or the creator mindset. So whether you're in the arena, training young horses, driving race cars, or wrestling on the wrestling mat, learning something new, or navigating life's tough situations, your mindset determines how you show up, determines how you think, determines the energy that you have, the inspiration you have to move forward. Before we move forward, we want to dedicate this podcast series to the teachers, the coaches, and the mentors. These are the people who inspire us, guide us, and challenge us to be better. Whether it's a coach on the sidelines, a mentor sharing hard-earned wisdom, or a teacher shaping young minds, this series is for you. So when we feel stuck, powerless, or at the mercy of circumstances, that is what we are going to define as the victim mindset. It's what I call the human condition. Now, maybe that's not completely true, but we have been taught this victim mindset, and we've had a lot of practice. In my case, I've been conscious, for 60 plus years. So we've had a lot of practice. So the question is, do we see challenges as opportunities to learn and adapt and create our own path? Because that's the creator mindset. Or do we see them as problems and things that we don't want? And today we're going to break down these two ways of thinking and how they shape our lives. And we're going to get into, there are 3 roles in each of this, whether we're talking about the victim mindset or we're talking about the creator mindset. There's 3 basic roles that we define within each of those mindsets. So let's start with the victim mindset, which has these 3 roles. Number 1, the victim. This is a person who feels powerless, stuck, or at the mercy of the world around them. The question is, they might be asking, why does this always happen to me? Or, I can't catch a break. Or, I'll never win. Sound familiar? That is victim mindset speak. So we want to pay attention to this. Then, the second role that we play in the victim mindset is the persecutor. This can be a person, a situation, or even ourselves. Something or someone you blame or blames you for your struggles. And rodeo can be a bad judge's call, a tough draw, or that voice in your head saying that you're not good enough. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the persecutor here in just a little bit. And then the third role, the rescuer. This role swoops in to fix things, offering temporary relief, but also enabling the victim's mindset instead of fostering real change. It is the knight in shining armor riding in to save the damsel from distress. When I first read this book, and of course this is all based on TED, the Empowerment Dynamic, written by David Emerald, and you can find it on Amazon. When I first heard this, I looked at the victim role, the persecutor role, and the rescue role, and in class we would ask each of our participants, which role do you think best suits you or best describes you? How do you move within the world? Not only how you think about things, but how you think about others. So I'll give you just a moment to maybe think a little bit about, do you play the victim role? Do you play the persecutor role? Do you play the rescuer role? What's kind of your main go-to? And we'd give them time, and they'd sit down, and they'd have conversation, and they'd think about things. And I'll be honest, my role, I believe, is the rescuer role. And it seems to me the most noble of these roles. Of course I ride in. Of course I'm going to rescue. Of course I'm going to try to fix things. I'm going to try to, I hate to say it, but I'm going to try to fix you. I'm going to try to fix the one that I'm trying to rescue. And what we're going to find at the base of all of these roles is the victim mindset. And just a word about the victim mindset. It is fear-based. And fear of not being able to do or complete. And I think it goes deeper than this. I think at its root, and we can just keep going and peeling away the onion. That's what David used to say, David G. He used to say, let's peel away the onion so we can get down into the core of us. And as we peel away these levels, how we think of ourselves, what we're fearful of, sometimes we get down into the core of what's real. And sometimes that can be a deep fear that we are not enough, that we are broken, that we are not loved. And it is the biggest lie of the universe. Yet it fuels the thoughts and behaviors that keep us trapped. We of course are enough. We are of course not broken, never have been, and we of course are loved. So we set aside that lie, and we have to work through it. And all of these roles are based on this victim mindset. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we perceive the world, and the challenges that we face. When in the victim mindset, we see ourselves and others as less than, flawed, imperfect, and broken. Less than. And all of these roles depend on the other to create drama. So let's talk a little bit about drama. Drama, simply put, is the emotional conflict that thrives on reactivity. And you remember in the past I talked about reacting in a situation. And sometimes it's helpful to think of that as act, which is to do what we've always done, to do without thought. It thrives on this reactivity, it thrives on misunderstanding, and it thrives on fear. So the victim, the persecutor, and rescuer roles constantly feed this cycle. Keep us stuck in the dreaded drama triangle. That's brand new, okay? First time I put that out there. So the easy way to remember the dreaded drama triangle, DDT. And the acronym DDT is no coincidence. It refers to this 42-letter word, dichloride, on, and I can't pronounce it, which is a toxic chemical pesticide banned, I should say, in the United States due to its harmful effects. Just like this crazy, ridiculous chemical that I think it was a defoliage. I think it would defoliage during the Vietnam War, just like that chemical. The dreaded drama triangle, DTT, is toxic. It poisons our thoughts, our relationships, and our ability to create a positive future. So, what we want to be able to do is start to think through this, because when we are caught in this mindset, we react instead of respond. We've talked about that. We blame instead of taking responsibility, and we struggle to see our way forward. So when a rescuer steps in, they do so to feel better about themselves, not necessarily to create real change. You know, that story of the knight in shining armor. Their help often reinforces the victim's dependency rather than empowering them. Likewise, when a persecutor yells, screams, judges, accuses, they do it with the belief that it'll make themselves feel better about themselves, asserting control and dominance to mask their own insecurities or frustrations. We think he does project too much. I don't know if we've talked about projection. Projection is when we take our stuff and we project it out into the world. We project our fears. We project our thoughts, our feelings of self-worth or lack of self-worth. We project them out into the field. It's kind of a verbal vomiting. You've probably been in these situations. And the belief is when I do that, even if it's at the cost of somebody else, I believe that I feel better about myself. It's, in other words, I feel bad. I'm going to throw all this up on your table. I know I don't like that. And no, I do like that analogy. I'm going to throw up on your table, and then I'm going to feel better about myself. And the reality is, no, it doesn't work that way. We don't really ever, there's a saying, a thought doesn't leave its source. So even though I throw it out there, no, it's really not gone anywhere. So here's some ways of identifying a persecutor, or when we are being a persecutor. First off, a persecutor doesn't take responsibility. Not my problem. Don't look at me. I didn't do this. They did it. What was that? Bart Simpson? That's how I found it. I didn't do it. They don't admit mistakes. They don't admit mistakes because a mistake to them is the worst. It is the realization that if I made a mistake, I'm worse than what I thought I was. And they certainly don't apologize. They don't admit their weaknesses or fears. Heaven help us, we put that out into the world, and they create chaos. It's constantly a barrage. It never ends because their goal is to keep their victim off center. And the persecutor, to exist, requires a victim. They must have a victim. If there is no victim, what happens to a persecutor? So something to remember. When you're around a persecutor, maybe if we don't behave or react as a victim to what they have to say, maybe we instead respond. And maybe it's responding in a loving, caring, kind way. And that can help the persecutor look around and say, what is this? And a persecutor will continue to look for a victim and will not be happy. And just so you know, we can persecute ourselves. probably one of the best at it, each of us individually, that ego that says you're not enough, and the victim, ourselves, who listens and mistakenly believes. And the persecutor, while they require a victim, they look at a rescuer sometimes as annoying, but don't misunderstand. They understand that a rescuer is just another victim. So let's move on. Probably a rescuer, let me say this. A persecutor, which doesn't have to be another person, it can be themselves, I just said that, or an act of nature, a tornado, fire, flooding. And I want to say this. There is a difference between being a victim. If my house burns down in a fire, yes, I'm a victim of that fire, and I have been victimized. But how I respond, how I look at that, determines if I'm a victim or if I am a creator. So in rodeo, we'll bring it back. You've seen competitors, maybe ourselves, who blames the stock, the judges, or the ground. The athlete who waits for someone else to step in and makes things easier. In an individual sport, that's pretty hard. Usually no one steps in, because it's all on us individually. And the cowboy feels like no matter how hard he tries, he's always coming up short. The victim mindset keeps us trapped. It keeps us feeling helpless and reactive. It is exhausting. It burns energy. It diminishes hope. And it diminishes creativity. But there's a way. There's a way out of the dreaded drama triangle, out of the DTTs. Let me tell you a story. This is a story of a survivor of a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. And this individual endured unimaginable suffering. He lost his wife and his family and everything he had, yet he emerged from the experience with a groundbreaking realization. Now think of this. Everything that this person had is gone. Everything that he would consider his life and his loved ones are gone. He didn't have a choice. He didn't get to say, no, I don't want to do that, or no, I want more food, or no, get me some more shoes that fit, clothes that fit, something that can keep me warm. He didn't have any of that. And coming through the realization of, or I should say the experience of this, his realization was this: everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. And it is this: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And this idea, by the way, this is Viktor Frankl. This idea is foundational to the empowerment dynamic, what we call TED, and the creator mindset. And he brings to us, his influence on TED is the power of choice. And remember, we have to know where we are. We call that awareness. We have to know where we are so that we can have a choice. And here's how he came about that. He recognized that while we cannot always control what happens to us, I mean, think of this. This is way beyond what we can't control to. This is what's happening to me, and I don't want any of it. We can control how we respond. This is the heart of personal responsibility. It is the foundation of TED. So here's his takeaway. Number one, we can choose meaning over victimhood. Even in the worst conditions, Frankl discovered that those who found meaning, a reason to keep going, were more likely to survive. Ted encourages us, the empowerment dynamic encourages us to shift from victim to creator by asking, what meaning can I find in this challenge? Or what can I learn? Or what do I want? Or as David G. would ask, what do I want at the deepest level? What does my heart want? Number 2, he found there is a space between what happens to us and how we respond. There's a space. So if you poke me with a stick and how I react, I can put a space in there. I can create a bit of a moment where we can choose, where I can choose my response. Notice we use the word response. And it's because of that moment that we can create. And that moment might be a second, might be a half a second, might be 30 seconds. So what would happen if we said, you poke me with a stick, okay? Let me take a moment here. Now, I will say this. That doesn't mean we have to stay and be poked by the stick a second time. Let's move out of harm's way for sure, because that just is common sense. But let's choose our response, not react. In TED, this mirrors a shift from reactivity, that victim mindset, to intentionality, what we want, or what we call the creator mindset. And number 3, and this, if you go back to remembering where he was in this Nazi concentration camp, he said to focus on possibility rather than suffering. In the past, we talked about Adyashanti's definition of suffering. If you remember, it's anytime I don't want what is, or I don't want what was, the past, I suffer. And Frankl taught that even in suffering, we can focus on what we can control. Our mindset, our choices, and our actions. Think how powerful that is. Think of these 3 things: choosing meaning over victimhood, number 1, choosing the space between getting poked by a stick and how I respond, and finally focus on possibility rather than suffering when you're in a concentration camp, when everything is done to you, period. You have no choice. And the creator in TED does the same by shifting from what's wrong to what can I do. So the teachings of Viktor Frankl remind us that no matter the situation, now think of this, no matter the situations, we have a choice. Now sometimes there isn't a lot of room, not a lot of space. If a fire is burning, something's going to blow up. We need to move very, very quickly. We talked about that, the knower versus the learner, in a past episode. But no matter what, no matter the situation, no matter what we're facing, no matter who's trying to persecute us, who's trying to rescue us, what victimhood I may be in the middle of, we always have a choice. And if you remember, I'm going to say it again, I must first have awareness of where I am and how I am thinking. What is my self-talk? What is my self-talk? We always have a choice. So we want to shift from this dreaded drama triangle, this toxic environment, to what we call TED, the empowerment dynamic. Let's move away from what we can't do to possibility. We want to move from victim to creator. That's the shift, from victim to creator. We want to shift from rescuer, we ride in and save you, to coach. And we want to move from persecutor to challenger. So creator, coach, and challenger, these are all creator-oriented. So Frankl's work is a testament to the power of resilience, responsibility, and the human spirit, all key to living as creator in TED. So there is an antidote for the DTTs. That's the purpose of the Viktor Frankl story. We get to talk about, I should say, the creator, the coach, and the challenger in the empowerment dynamic, what we call TED. So when we shift out of the victim mindset, remember we can do that by asking, what is it that I want? And we step into the creator mindset, we move into roles that empower us and those around us. The three roles, again, the creator, the coach, and the challenger, form the foundation of the empowerment dynamic, still a triangle, but it's the empowerment dynamic, gives us power and replaces the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor of the DDTs. So the creator, let me talk about this real quick. Definition of the creator, we've talked about this on our last episode, is someone who sees challenges as opportunities, takes responsibility for their actions, and focuses on solutions rather than problems. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? The creator asks, what can I do about this? So the key beliefs of a creator, and these are all, I believe these are skills. This self-talk is a practice. It's a skill that we can develop. So the key beliefs of a creator is that life happens for me, not to me. You know, David G. would talk about we're in this river of life. Can we float along? Can we roll with it? Can we do the right thing when we come to some rapids? Can we look up, look beyond, look through those rapids and realize that life happens for me? I'm in the flow. Can we get in the flow? And it also, one key belief of a creator, I'm responsible for my choices. I love the word responsibility. I'm responsible for my choices. My choices. And choices, they imply that we have thought and we've looked at a situation and we have the facts. And I'm responsible for my choices. What I put out into the world, that's my choice. And finally, I have the power to take action and create outcomes. So, what are some rodeo examples? A bareback rider who draws the tough horse doesn't dwell on how unfair the draw was. Instead, they study the horse's previous rides. They adjust their approach. They focus on executing a strong ride. They focus on being more points than the horse, getting the most out of what every horse throws at them. And I think that is the distinction between those that win a bunch and the rest of us that don't win as much. No matter what you get on, if that's an 18-point horse, can you get your full 25 points out of that horse? Or here's another example. A competitor who keeps missing the barrier in steer wrestling doesn't blame the judge or the setup. That language, it is what it is. Instead, they evaluate their timing, they watch replays, and they make adjustments for their next run. And when you think about steer wrestling, that score line changes based on the arena. We could have a short score line, 5 feet for the steer head start. We could have a long runway, a long head start like in Cheyenne, I have to be able to adjust. So I do that by studying and understanding this is where it is. In life, a creator doesn't complain about their job or situation. Instead, they identify what they want. They set goals and they take steps to move forward. That's a creator. So let's talk about the coach, which is the opposite, the antidote to the rescuer. The coach is someone who supports others without enabling them. Instead of saving people by doing things for them, a coach asks powerful questions and helps others find their own solutions. A true coach knows that growth comes from experience, not from someone else fixing problems for you. A coach believes that people are capable of solving their own challenges. A coach believes that empowering others is more effective than rescuing them. And a coach believes that asking the right questions help people learn and grow. A coach believes in the other person. A coach believes that they are capable. A coach believes that they are whole, complete, and perfect. So, examples in rodeo. A seasoned barrel racer sees a young competitor struggling with her turns. Instead of telling her exactly what to do, the coach asks questions. What do you think is causing your wide turn? What adjustments have you made? This encourages the rider to think, problem solve, and take ownership of her performance. The coach may know exactly what it is, but is there learning in that? Is there development in that? Is that holding that person, the coach, is the coach holding that competitor into their capabilities, causing them to think? Did you ever notice when you really have to think, when you got to puzzle your way through, that sometimes the learning sticks with you, or maybe the solution comes a little bit different? I've had those situations. I remember I was doing a training, and it's a subject that I knew very, very well. And I had a solution in my brain. And we're going through this, and I'm asking them questions. There's probably 10 people sitting around the table, and I'm asking them questions. Well, what about this, or what about that, or what about whatever? And at a certain point, they grew frustrated. And they said, Doug, just tell us what the answer is. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because there's no learning in that. That's just memory. That's just taking notes and memorizing. But let's talk about how we might consider something, what facts we need, how we might break it down. That's where Toyota's job relations came in, getting the facts, weigh and decide, all of that stuff. That's a good podcast episode in the future. But I refuse to give them the answer. And I'm going to tell you this, as I continued to ask questions, as they grew frustrated, and finally I could see them take responsibility. I could see them start to talk amongst themselves. And they said, well, what if this? And what if that? And it was like this new thing was created. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be completely honest. When the solution they came up with was twice as good, twice better than the one I was going to offer, because they thought through it. And there was a power of not one perspective, not one idea, not one set of facts, not one set of experience, but 10 people's responsibility and experiences and decision-making. And the team formed up because they took responsibility for themselves. And again, way better than I would have told them to do. So a coach doesn't make statements. A coach asks questions. A coach also, think of a football coach. During a game, they're not in the field of play. They're observing, they're listening, they're watching, and they're coming up with their questions. So a coach at a rodeo school doesn't just lecture students on proper techniques, but instead guides them through self-correction learning. They might say, what do you notice about your balance when you leave the box? Instead of you're sitting too far forward. Can we end each statement with a question mark? Okay? What do you notice about your balance when you leave the box? Questions. And in life, a parent who takes a coaching approach encourages their child to problem solve rather than immediately fixing things for them. Instead of saying, let me talk to your teacher, they might say, what do you think would be a good way to approach the problem? So let's move on to the challenger. This is the toughest one. This, to me, this is the tough one. But it replaces the persecutor. And let me just give you this definition. The challenger holds others accountable in a way that promotes learning and growth. Unlike the persecutor who criticizes, blames, and tears others down, the challenger, I'm going to underline this word, pushes people to be better without shaming them. They call them forward. They set high expectations. They challenge the assumptions, and they encourage people to step up to their potential. And sometimes the language is, you're better than this. You're capable of more. I need you to work at this. And the key beliefs of a challenger: challenge is necessary for growth. They believe this. They believe that accountability, when done right, strengthens people rather than breaking them down. And they believe that pushing someone out of their comfort zone can help them reach new levels of success. Examples in rodeo and life: a rodeo coach sees a young steer wrestler backing off during practice runs. We've all been there. We've all done it. It's practice. Well, Sam would say practice perfect. Instead of berating them, the challenger says, I know you've got more in you. What in the world's going on? What's holding you back? Come on, let's work through it. Let's get to it. Let's get busy. And a mentor calls out a competitor who constantly blames the draw, judges, or conditions. Instead of letting them stay in the victim mindset, the challenger asks, what are you doing to get better? How are you preparing to make the most of your run? The next bronc, the next bull, the next barrel race, what are you gonna do to make the most? Rockin' Robbie Hodges told a story. He was hanging out with a bunch of the rodeo wolves, right? The wolf pack. And they had taken on a young cowboy into their truck, and they were traveling down the road, and that young cowboy had gone 68 points and complain and misery and all of that sort of stuff. And finally they said, stop it. There ain't a one of us in this truck that ain't gone 68 points and felt bad about it. There ain't a one of us in this truck that hasn't done that. But what in the world are you going to do now? Get on with it, basically, is what they said. And there's this easy movement around this triangle of challenger, creator, and coach. In a single conversation, your role will shift from one to the other. Okay? From one to another. You're going to call them forward. You're going to call them forward and say you can do better. And then you can, and that's that challenger role, and then you can quickly shift into the coaching role. I know you can do better. How might you put together a practice plan? Or a plan for this practice session? Or a plan for the next practice section? I want you to bring that with you, challenger. I want you to, how can you do it, is the coach. Here's what you're going to do. Here's the challenger. And the creator in all of this all fits under the umbrella of the creator. The challenger and the coach believes that person is capable, period. In life, a challenger might be a teacher who pushes a student to reach their full potential rather than accepting excuses. Instead of saying you failed, so you must not be any good at this, they say, what'd you learn from this mistake? How can you apply it moving forward? How might you be better prepared? And I'm just going to wrap this part up by saying, look, there is a base difference between the challenger and persecutor. The language can be the same, can sound the same in both roles, whether I'm a challenger or persecutor. I might say, I know you're better than this. But the challenger believes in their heart that the other person is capable of improving, that they are capable. If I don't believe they're capable and I say something like this, I'm just being mean and I'm back to being a persecutor. So if I'm on the other side of this and somebody is attacking me, okay, they're a persecutor. If I stand into my creator role as opposed to a victim role, I'm trying to decipher, what is this person trying to teach me? What in what they're saying is there for me to learn? That's all. I'm not going to buy into the blame. I'm not going to buy into the blame, the shame, or the guilt. I want to know what they're trying to teach me, because I'm here to learn. And if all you're going to do is accuse and not give me anything, or I can't figure out what it is to learn, there's always something to learn, by the way. Sometimes the best thing to learn is what not to do, how not to behave. The persecutor is constantly teaching. All of us are constantly teaching. As we walk and we talk, we are teachers. So, how do we make the shift? We talked a bit about this. I want to shift into that creator, coach, and challenger and put it into action. To fully step into this TED, this empowerment dynamic, we must be aware when we're slipping into the victim, rescuer, persecutor roles. We talked about that. We want to ask questions like, what do I want? Or in David G's question, what does my heart want? And I can't say that without dropping in just a little bit deeper, because it has a little more meaning when we add the word heart to it. And then we surround ourselves, and iron sharpens iron, absolutely. And mentors are there to help us, absolutely. Pay attention. Surround ourselves with coaches, creators, and challengers who encourage growth, responsibility, and self-leadership. They're not there to attack. They're not there to shame. They're not there to blame. They're not there to judge. They're there to assess. And show up in that creator orientation that, guess what, guys? I know a lot, but I don't know everything. Embrace that learner mindset. May take a little bit of work, but get rid of that old coat that we wear. You know, that knower, I know. You ever talk to anybody? Do you ever be in a conversation where you use this ridiculous response to things that are coming at you? I know. I can't ask that without thinking of Dan, my buddies. Dan learned how to trim top a tree by climbing up with your spikes. He's going through the training. I know. And they go, cool. Put on the spikes. To do what? To climb the tree. You're going to trim the tree. And he went, oh, I guess I don't know. I love that example. We get to shift. So after we become aware of slipping into the victim, rescue, or persecutor roles, we ask our questions. We ask the right questions. We surround ourselves with the right people. And the best part, here's the thing that matters. This shift is a choice. We get to choose. It is that space. Doesn't matter how long we've lived in the drama triangle. Doesn't matter how long we've been a victim, how long we've been a persecutor, how long we've been a rescuer. Does not matter. Because each new thing that we do, you put one foot in front of the other. We can always step out. We have a choice to step into what empowers us, that empowerment dynamic. And you've seen great rodeo competitors adopt this mindset. Instead of blaming a bad ride on the stock, they ask, what could I have done differently? Instead of making excuses, analyze their performance and adjust. Instead of rescuing struggling teammates, they become coaches. And they guide and they encourage without taking away their opportunity to grow. When we are coaching, we are teaching. And when we teach, we learn. So as we're working with somebody, maybe they're struggling on a mark out in the bronc riding, and that young person we've taken under our arm that's struggling with this, when we become a coach, we have to think about it. We have to think about it, and we have to explain it in a way that isn't just, oh, I don't know, I just always naturally do it. The doer turns into a coach, which is that fifth level of learning that we talk about. Step number 4, we master it. We do it without thought. Step number 5, we can teach it. And in our teaching, we learn. So what's the takeaway? Bring it all back together. Your mindset is a choice. We can stay stuck in the victim mindset, feeling powerless, blaming circumstances, or waiting for someone to save you, or we can shift to the creator mindset, where we can take charge, we can find solutions, where we can turn obstacles into opportunity. Rodeo teaches us resilience. That resilience we take with us through life. And sometimes you'll draw the rankest bull. Sometimes the ground won't be in your favor. Sometimes life will throw you a curveball you didn't expect. But the best competitors, the best people, choose to respond as creators. They focus on what they can do. They focus on seeking guidance from coaches. They look for the challengers, and they welcome the challenge of the growth. Truth is, we've all played these roles before. The victim who feels powerless, the rescuer who steps in to fix everything, and even the persecutor who criticizes or blames. But the key takeaway is this. We don't have to stay stuck in this dreaded drama triangle, this DDT. Breaking free starts with awareness. We've talked about that. We did an episode on awareness. Go back and listen to it. It might in this context make a little bit more sense. And when you're aware that you're in a victim mindset, pause. Pause. And ask yourself, like pushing pause on this podcast, what do I want? Pause. What can I do about this? Pause. How can I take responsibility for my response? Pause. When you shift from reacting to creating, responding, you step into your power. It's called the empowerment dynamic. This is the book, TED. David Emerald is the author. You can stop waiting for someone else to change our circumstances and start building a path forward. And I'm going to tell you this. We are all teachers. And when you show up as a creator, a coach, or a challenger, people are going to notice this. How you walk and how you talk. And you bring out the best in yourself and in others. And they say what he or she has, what you have, I want. And pretty quick, you won't have enough seats in your van going down the road because people want to jump with you. So we can stop looking for others to take responsibility. But this is work. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. Because when we trade in that blame, shame, and guilt for responsibility, vision, and action, we move from survival to growth. We move from fear to possibility. We move from stuck to unstoppable. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next time. In the next episode of Quiet Enough to Ride, this podcast series, we're going to explore FISBE, F-I-S-B-E, a powerful model. Comes out of the Empowerment Dynamic book by David Emerald. a powerful model that helps us understand how our focus, our inner state, and our behaviors shape the reality we create. We're going to go back to Maxwell Maltz's The Psycho-Cybernetics Form of Thinking. This is actionable. Okay? So I look forward to you joining us in the future in our next episode. This is episode number 11. That'll be episode number 12. And as always, my friends, thank you for riding with me today. Better yet, thank you for allowing me to ride with you. Again, I imagine I'm sitting in the right-hand seat in the passenger seat. I got my feet up. We're rolling along. I'm sipping on an iced tea, and we are talking, and we are learning, and we are living. Until next time, stay aware, stay accountable, and stay quiet enough to ride. This is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.